I think all of us want to create a classic record. We want to create a record that lasts through the ages. My goal is just to try to honor the music as best I can with just my thumbprint in the corner. My thumbprint evolves constantly. As a producer engineer, we're always looking for that piece of gear that does something that we have to do manually that we'd like to make faster and better. So that symbiotic relationship, whether it's a mic preamp, an EQ, or this device, which is a relay-based 64x2 patch bay that's fully programmable. You can do any patch and combinations of patches that you would want. I'm not the inspiration for it, but as a user, some of the things that I wanted it to do were things they took to heart. The relay-based operation and screen-based control. Hi, my name is Vance Powell. We're at Sputnik Sound in lovely Berry Hill, Tennessee, right in the middle of Nashville, Tennessee. Part of the thing about Sputnik is I don't want to ever tell the artist I can't do something. My career has been about 19 years on the road and about 24 years off the road. My years on the road means I'm fast. That just comes from mixing every band under the sun in every room under the sun and all kinds of styles. Everything from Tony Irwin to Chris Stapleton. And the tools are changing. 10 or 12 years ago, I was doing a lot of tape, and now none. Tape is a tone and a mindset. It forces the producer slash engineer slash artist to think in very focused terms. Sounds to me are created in the margins of tracks. Back when I worked for Jack, we did everything on 8. So we had drums on 1 track. We'd be mixing. He's like, I wish there was a little hi-hat. I'd be like, hold on. And I'd turn up a little 8K. He'd be like, oh, that's cool. And that was all it took. It's like an artist picking a period. Like, okay, I'm going to work in blue for the next year. They gave themselves limitations to work inside these framework because it's easy to throw some red on there. It takes a lot of creativity to make that monotone painting. So the limitations are awesome. I worked for Jack for years. He never would use Pro Tools. He didn't want to use it because he knew he would get in the weeds with it on the creative side, and he wanted to keep the creative side in his head and not in this computer. As we've moved from stereo audio into multi-channel audio, you're constantly sort of thinking, okay, how does my studio patch so that it all works? I think a lot about how things come from my playback device and to my record device, how it gets to my return. In other words, how do I hear it? I want people to be drawn to sounds and places. So how do we do that? A little while back, Jared came to me and he was talking to me about this patch bay idea, how to replace patch bays in a console. One of the things that I said is that if it's not done with relays, then I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear anything else that changes the analog sound. It just so happened, my good friend Paul Wolff had stopped by and they ended up talking, and that started a whole relationship. About a year later, they were like, hey, we got something we want to show you, and that's the ProPatch. I have about 256 patch points in for gear. And most of them are patched for mix are the same all the time. But there's a bunch down here on the end of my console that I'm using the ProPatch to make those wild. So I can patch whatever I want in those at any given time. One of the cool things of ProPatch is that on the front panel here, you have these TT connectors. They allow you to connect to any other pieces of gear that may be in my patch bay that are not connected directly. The back panel cables on my system actually come out the front here, and there are all these green. This is all the ProPatch. But part of the ProPatch is these TRSs. But on the front here, you also have these XLRs, which are XLR encoders and 4 1/4-inch cables. So if I want to plug a guitar, like straight in, I can go right in 13. I can route from 13 in ProPatch to a pedal, come out of a pedal, out of 16 down here, these are outputs here, and go to a guitar amp. I can patch it however I want it, and I can audition all those things. That's a really, really powerful tool, other than having me telling Cohen, okay, go from channel 47, insert send, to number 47 and 48. It's very fast and equal to do that. On my screen here, I have the ProPatch interface. What we're gonna talk about right now is this patch right here and this patch right here. These patches are an output of my console that goes to the TT bay. That goes to a piece of gear, but then that piece of gear, inside it, it has an input and an output for guitar pedals. Then that piece of gear comes back to the TTs, which then come back to my console. So what I can do is, if I take a lead vocal track here, this is a track from my good friend Carina Frantzen, put the vocal track up. It's a dry vocal. She's a fantastic singer. Like a draw. We get just the dry vocal here. Now I want to try some different patches for her vocal effects. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to make the patch, and then I'm going to try this Auto Biscuit BIM. It's a delay unit. So just clicking that in, here's this delay unit, sounds awesome. And then what I've done is I've set up some things after it. So here is the UA Golden reverb pedal. And here's the BIM. So the BIM is driving the reverb, all right? This is just the reverb by itself. Here's the BIM in front of it. All right, I'm gonna come over here to my list of processors, and down here is the del verb, and now I can have an A-B. Like a draw. Right, now I'm gonna put the UA in, and I'm gonna put the del vibe, and I can just switch between them. When we're going from mix to mix to mix, I can just bring up this file, the snapshot, load it, and it just goes. And it's done. Trust comes from people believing that you have the talent and the vision to do the job. There's something about something that I'm doing they like. I think with Jack, it was that I never told him no and that I was fast. I think for Chris, there's something about the sound of the band that he never felt like it was what he felt like it sounded like until I happened to step in. That's the trust. You have 64 inputs and 64 outputs. Anything can patch to anywhere and have the whole thing in one rack space. It's amazing.